Welcome back, everybody, to Beyond Moon. I'm Jerry Hall. This is my partner, Cryptopolis. Today, episode 3, we are going to do something quite unique. We are actually going to do a deep dive into my personal exit strategy. Cryptopolis and I have talked offline, and he's agreed to be my accountability partner.
Now, let's just, as a disclaimer, let's just say that I've agreed to my friend Jerry's to be his accountability partner. I am not providing him with financial advice. He created the plan, and I am just going to be holding it to him and providing any feedback that I have personally, or maybe give him some suggestions of things that I would do. But it's I'm not providing Jerry with financial advice whatsoever. We're just friends talking.
Plutonic friends, nothing beyond that.
Yes, right.
Okay, so folks, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my screen with y'all as we go through this. First time ever. All right, so I've created a Google Doc here. I call it Crypto Profits. This is my exit strategy. The goal for me, or us, who speculate on crypto is to maximize the return of my investment from the asset. However, many of us aren't clear as to the stage that follows. So, which is how to maximize the capital generated by profits. Some may want to retain the capital while others may want to use to pay off debt, while some will use it to generate more wealth. Below is my process, and we're going to walk through it right now. So for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to use one of my bags. It's got 96,000 XRP in it. Had a total investment of $50,600. That's an average cost of 52.7 cents per XRP. Now my goal here, and we talked about goals in our last episode, my goal here is that I'm going to explore some various options available to me that I can determine to be the best process to receive a monthly, I want a monthly income, and I want to retain the maximum amount of capital that I possibly can through the profits my crypto investment brought me. So using that information, I can, create a strategy, determine what they call the appropriate strategy. For me, this will be the first time in my life that I will ever be responsible for managing a 7-figure net worth. So if I predict that I'm going to be in the wealthy category, then spending time to analyze the various elements necessary to meet my goals is absolutely mandatory. Preparing for this life-changing amount of wealth is a daunting task, both from a financial literacy perspective and an emotional one. The learning curve is high, and with many unknowns, there's always doubt. This is why I've opened up my plan for the public, because I believe that the feedback that I'm going to receive from those who have experience in this space will far outweigh any senseless chatter. Below is a list of the professionals I will enlist to aid me in achieving my goals once these numbers start coming in. I am going to acquire and enlist the help of a fiduciary financial planner. Fiduciary is very important in that they have a legal obligation to provide me the best possible information for my best interests, not their own.
Right.
I'm going to acquire the financial services of a CPA for tax structuring and ensuring that I stay clear of any IRS trouble, as well as minimize my tax liabilities throughout the process. And thirdly is an attorney for setting up any trusts, wills, or partnerships that may be necessary for structuring to get the best tax breaks. So I want to retain the money that this investment is going to generate me. For the purposes of the exercise, I'll only be using the $96,000 96,000 XRP bag that I've got. Stage 1, I know what I have. I know what I want. Now how to get there. So I put together a little plan here, and we'll run through it. I call it stage 1. I'm going to take 25% of my bag. My goal is to sell 25% of the total holdings that I have, and I want to receive a minimum of $130,000 after taxes. What that looks like is 24,000 XRP are going to get sold. There's a math equation to get me where I want to go. I need the price of the coin. I need to subtract my cost basis, and then I need to subtract my tax liability so that I get what we call the net return.
Oh, I'm glad you figured this out already because I got my calculator out.
Oh, cool.
But it
cool.
looks like you already got this done. So
yeah, I did this, but I thought it was important when sharing with people that I'm actually showing the equation that I'm using.
That's a great idea.
Numbers.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So in case I'm wrong, I can be checked, and in case somebody doesn't really know how to get from
How
A
to calculate
to C,
that, yeah.
exactly, they'll get it. So the answer to my quandary here, right, is that to get that 130,000 net that I want, I'm going to need to sell at $7 per XRP. So in stage one, I'm going to sell at $7. I'm going to sell the 24,000. That's going to give me a gross, right, of 168 grand. Now, I have a cost basis on that 24,000 XRP of $12,480. Deducted gives me a taxable gain, a taxable amount, a taxable gross, whatever you want to call it, $155,520. Now, I've already researched this, my particular tax situation, because I'm living in Costa Rica, is I'm going to have to pay the IRS, the federal government, 15% because I'm in a long-term capital gain situation. I'm single and I have an income less than $500,000 a year. And these are all important pieces to getting to that number. It leaves me, after paying the IRS, it leaves me $132,192. Note, I have no state taxes because I'm living in Costa Rica. Now, the action that I need to take with that $132,000 is that I'm going to take 120,000 of it, and I'm going to invest directly into a 10% annual CD down here in Costa Rica. I've already researched this. I know exactly where to go. I already have a guy at the place. I have to just walk in, set up the wire transfer, and bam, it starts happening. The whole purpose of this is that I want to get $1,000 a month income going right away without touching the actual capital. So I want to start receiving a benefit from this first stage without spending $1 of the capital. Make sense?
Absolutely.
What do you think of that?
I think you've created a very detailed plan here. And I think for the purposes of this illustration, we should also let everybody know that this is in denominated in US dollars.
Right.
USD. So you've got a very, very well conceived plan here. Now, I guess there's some assumptions within this that you've made. And number one is that you're going to take a portion of this because you want that $1,000 a month income. So you need to sell 24,000 XRP at $7 in order to net the money that you need in order to generate that $1,000 a month. That's
Right.
your real goal. Is that correct?
You couldn't have hit it. You hit it right on the head.
Okay. So if that's the case, then this sounds like a very sound plan. Now, we should also probably make a disclaimer that 10% is a very, very generous interest income on any funds that you have. And that's because you are in Costa Rica.
Right. This is unique to Costa Rica. You can't go to a bank in the US.
That's right.
You get a certificate deposit that pays you 10% annually. I'm sorry. Maybe, what are you guys getting in the States nowadays? 1.6, 1.2 on a CD?
A 13-week T-bill is 1.55%. as of date of today's date. And so you can't get anything close to 10%. If you go to, a savings account, a savings account in the US, I think I have one savings account, but I don't use it because the interest rate is so low, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. There's only two places there's a couple different places now, but in the US, if you want 1.5% or more on your funds available these are liquid funds that you can take out, not in a CD where you're locking it up over time, right?
Right. This is a 12-month lock.
Okay, 12-month lock.
But the disbursement's paid once a month.
Gotcha. And that's compounded, or is this paid directly to your account?
It's paid directly to my account. There's no compounding. It's just 1 year. Yeah.
Gotcha. So in the United States, you have 1.55%. 1.5%, I can get at M1 Finance in their spend account, which is what I use. You can also get 1.55% in a 13-week T-bill, like I mentioned, if you go to treasurydirect.gov. Now, back in 2008, I had an issue when the financial crisis hit that my local bank had a limit of, I don't know if you remember this, the FDIC limit at that time was only $100,000.
Oh, it was 100?
It was $100,000 going into the financial crisis. The Congress lifted the FDIC limits to $250,000 during the financial crisis because they were afraid people were going to start to do a run on the
banks. Yeah.
Especially during the financial crisis, a lot of banks at that time were failing. At one time, there was like 20, 30, 40 banks a week failing. And so they raised the FDIC limits to help, reduce the runs that may have occurred on the bank. And so I had an account in which was over the FDIC limits, even after they raised it. And so I went to the bank manager at the time and I said, hey, look, take a look at my account. Is there anything I can do? Because if you close tomorrow, I'm over the 250,000 FDIC limit. What can I do to protect my money? I don't want to take it out in cash and hold it in my house, Right. And she goes, well, what we can do is we can sweep it overnight into the Treasury Department. Right. And so I said, okay, fine. That's a good deal to me. And she goes, and then in the next morning when we open, it'll be back in your account. You like it's never even been gone. But overnight, you're earning a little bit of interest as well. I said, okay, let's do it.
Right on.
Now, today, you can open up, if you're a United States resident, you can open an account at treasurydirect.gov. And you can you can link it directly to your bank account, and you can do the same thing. You can sweep the money if you want to, anything over the FDIC limits into that account. And I would recommend using very short term because you never know which way rates are going to go. They could go up, they could go down. Most people are predicting down, but you never know. And so that is, in my opinion, okay, when we start talking to some finance professionals out there, the financial professionals will get their opinion as well. But it's probably the safest place in the world to put your money because, hey, look, this is the Treasury Department. If they go out of business, the whole world's in trouble. Right?
For the Treasury to go out of business, somebody would have to go through a heck of a lot of tanks and
Yes.
you know what I mean?
That's exactly
F-16 fighter planes. I'm sorry, I don't see the Treasury Department going out of business anytime soon.
That's right. And so that's true if you have 100,000 or if you have 100 million.
Okay. Well, that's a good point. I'll tell you what, I think it's a good idea. Let's go ahead and include a link under this video on the Coil page for this episode.
Yes.
For Treasury Direct.
Yes.
All right. Yes. Excellent. Hey, to put a fine point or to finish stage one, I thought it was important to let people know when you are receiving an income, right, from dividends, from your investments, whatever, it's important to consult your tax people and find out what your income tax liability is going to be on that money. I did a little bit of the research here. I put a note here. You'll see it on the page. Because I'll be less than $38,600, I will have no tax liability on that $1,000 a month.
That's absolutely correct.
And I think
You
that's
have done your research.
yeah, that's an important thing to consider, because later in the plan, I'm going to exceed that 38,000.
Yes, and that is true, I believe, for both dividend income and interest income. If you earn less than $38,000 a year, that is tax-free money.
Correct, and that's important. So the point of this is that this stage one allows me to do a couple things. One, it triples my existing income. Everybody remember, I'm living on $350 a month down here right now. $1,000 a month increases my quality of living tremendously. And I'm not touching the principal. That is such, I can't drive that home, that point home strong enough. That $120,000 of capital is still mine, still there.
Right.
All right, so let's move on to stage two. You ready for this?
Well, before we do, I just have 2 points that I'd like to make.
Okay.
Number one is, have you done research on the interest rate fluctuations on the CD over the last 5 years for Costa Rica?
It hasn't, it's gone up. It's had an average of 0.27 a year over the last 5 years.
Okay, so what was the low of that interest rate?
It was like 8.65 or something 5 years ago. 8.67, something like that.
Okay, so there's not a lot of fluctuation in that CD rate.
No, this isn't through a bank. It's through a credit union, or their version of a credit union. And down here, the dynamics work a lot differently than up in the States. For instance, it's the credit unions that fund business loans down here, not the big banks.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Now, for corporates, it's a totally different gig. But if you're talking about $30,000 loans, $50,000 loans, $100,000 loans, it's the credit unions that fund the expansion. Also, the way public works are done down here, they're very regional. So for instance, where we come from, the Fed spends a ton on public works. States spend less, counties spend even less, and cities spend even less. It's almost at 180-degree difference down here. The cities spend the most.
So that answers my question, because you've got it locked up for a 12-month rate.
Right.
If there was a lot of fluctuation, and if you thought interest rates were going higher, you might want to put it into a shorter term in order to capture any potential gains. Because if you're locked into that rate over a 12-month period and the interest rate goes to 11 or 12%, then you're going to miss out on some of that potential extra.
Yeah, but I can't get 10 on a 3-month, and I can't get 10 on a 6.
Right.
Month.
Right. Exactly.
It's a year.
But if you thought interest rates were going up, that might be C. And also, the other point I wanted to make is that you have no compounding in this first step, at least.
Correct. It's a money grab, Dave. I'll be honest.
Okay, this is your plan.
I want to increase, dude. I'm living off of $350 a month.
That's amazing. I don't know anybody else that can do that.
I'd like to go have a milkshake. I'd like to go to the movie theaters and see like a movie.
Yeah.
That isn't Netflix. You know what I mean? Okay. All right. So let's get into stage two.
Okay.
Stage two, I'm starting with a balance, right, of 72,000 XRP. Now my goal here is to increase my monthly income and to begin a compounding interest account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell 25% of the balance of that. So 25% of 72,000, and I want to net $140,000 in cash after taxes. That's the goal there. So I need, 18,000 XRP to do this. I'm going to take 18,000 XRP. I'm going to sell it for $10 a token. I'm going to get a gross of 180,000. I have a cost basis of that 18,000 XRP of $9,360. It's going to give me a taxable gross of $170,064. My same long-term capital gain equation comes into play, so it's less 15% is, I'm going to get $145,044 after taxes. Now, what I'm going to do with that 145,000, I'm going to take right off the top another 120 grand, and I'm going to double my monthly income again without touching the principal. So I'm going to now increase my income from 1,000 to 2,000. I'm going to take, I'm going to take the other $25,000 and I'm going to deposit it into a Schwab account, and I'm going to allocate it into 3 dividend paying stocks that teeter in and out of the aristocrat or steady earner category. These are REITs that have long track records of increasing dividends, solid markets, just solid companies. You know, up, down, 2008, 2015, they're strong. And how that looks is that I take $8,332 and divide it into those 3 stocks. What I have to do then is I have to blend my rate, because not every stock is going to give me the same yield every year. So I did the math. It comes to a blended 11.5 annual, loaded into a compounding interest calculator with no further contributions. Okay? No further contributions. After 30 years, if those numbers remain the same, it's going to give me $750,000. Now I understand, and I put the note there, I understand with an investment like this that either quarterly or 6-month review or monitoring processes are going to have to be in place, because it may need to be rebalanced or removed, moved, because stuff happens in the market and I can't look at those 3 stocks and say they're going to do the same thing for the next 30 years straight. I totally get that. So I'm going to have some kind of monitoring plan, and then a rebalancing approach to, if something needs to go, what's going to take its place.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think of them apples?
I do like it. And so you have, obviously this is your second stage. And so you are still protecting your capital by putting it into a CD. You're earning additional income now. And this is probably where, your plan might differ than someone else who's maybe is younger.
Oh, sure.
Right. So let's be clear about that, because somebody who's in their 20s and they're going through, they have a similar scenario, might want to do the compounding both in stage 1 and stage 2, rather than taking the income, because they're going to, that compounding interest that we talked about in episode 2 is really going to kick in for them.
Well, it reminds me, you're probably thinking the same thing I was thinking when we saw that illustration video where there was the 19-year-old, right?
Yep.
Invested a total, what was it? And I don't remember exact, $9,000?
$28,800.
$28,000 to get to almost $2 million after 30 years. Yeah. The guy who was 27 years old had to put $140,000, right, and he got $1.5 million, right?
Yes.
That's a huge difference.
It is a huge difference. And so I don't know how old you are, but you're probably similar in age to me, or less. Well, you're probably younger than I am, but that it makes sense for you to take some of that income out to, enjoy your life at this stage. For somebody who's 19 or 20, it might make more sense to do some more compounding interest.
And get that money working. I could not agree more. I could not agree more.
And keep working. If you're 19 or 20 years old, keep working, keep chugging along, keep saving your money, and even add to that account over time, and you'll be extremely wealthy by the time you're ready to retire. That's for sure. Even only 30 years. Hey, look, somebody starts at 19 years old and they go 30 years. That's only 49.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. You might think you're old at 49, but you're not, guys. So anybody or gals, anybody who thinks that they're old at 49 is, it's not true. You're still a young chicken.
So I have a 20. I'll just do a quick story for everybody. I have a 24-year-old son. Love him to death. He is the cat's meow. I'm his biggest fan. He's invested in XRP, and we've talked about this. What are you going to do? And to him, he's got some ideas, and to him, they're extremely logical and extremely constructive. But all his ideas have him taking his profit and capitalizing it into a very high risk situation. He has a business idea he wants to invest in, and it might be a wonderful business, and it might work out, and he becomes the next Mark Cuban. I don't know. But taking your money and investing it into high risk stuff or spending it on depreciating assets seems to be one of the quickest ways to turn wealth into poverty.
Well, that's exactly what a lot of we mentioned in episode 2, the football players and basketball players.
Oh, episode 1, right?
Years, they typically will invest in very high risk enterprises, business startups. And if you look at the university, do a search for some of the professional sports players, very few of them actually make it. There are some that are tremendously successful.
Sure.
But very few of them are. So that's absolutely correct. Now, the 3 investments that you're looking at here to invest in dividend stocks, I agree with 100%. I think those.
I figured you'd be well aware of them.
Yes, those are very good investments. They pay terrific yields, and their dividend growth is, you're exactly right. That's what you look for. You will look for that dividend growth. Now, the one thing that you didn't figure into that is not only the
starting point.
I'm sorry?
The starting point. I knew you were going to, I knew the second I didn't include this, that you were going to spot that.
Yeah,
go ahead,
so
tell everybody what isn't on the paper.
So what you're missing completely is when you actually do this investment. So what you want to do is you want to take a look at, hey, look, if I've got 25,000, do I just sink it all in at one time, or do I spread it out over a period of time? Because here's what typically will happen in a market scenario is that you're either going to catch the very height of the stock price, or you're going to catch it on the way down and it continues to fall or something like that. So you don't want to invest at the very top of the market, and you don't want to invest as the market's declining either. So one of the things that I suggest is that you break that up into either a 12, 24, or 36 month period and take that money and invest it. So you keep it in a liquid account, like a checking account, and then invest it over a period of months. Now, this is not a large sum of money. 25,000 isn't very large. So I would invest it personally over maybe a 6 to 10 month period, and just kind of dollar cost average into each one of these issues, so that you're not catching the top, or you're not catching it on the way down, but you're doing a nice dollar cost average across the 6 or 10 month period.
Yeah. What wasn't included? I knew you were going to catch that. I just knew you would. Folks, when you're going to buy a stock that pays you a dividend, there's 2 elements of the value proposition. There's the dividend that you're going to receive. And in my case, I'm concerned about the dividend because that is the compounding element of this process. But what Dave's also drawing attention to with dollar cost averaging and that kind of mindset is there's a value to the underlying asset itself. What is each share costing you? Now, if I bought these shares in January of 2009 when they were, 70% down from their high, then you go ahead and you buy them all at once. If you know that the market is going to be on a 14-year bull run, it's no big deal. The point is, none of us know exactly what's going to happen in the future. And the safest, most beneficial way to spread your risk is to dollar cost average. Not to mention the upside, if these companies continue to remain profitable, not only are they going to increase their dividend, but the value of the underlying stock is going to increase.
Well, that's the capital appreciation component of this, which is another factor that's not mentioned here, is that over time, it's not just the compounding, but it's actual capital appreciation of the underlying asset. And so typically, let's say in a constant scenario where the dividend is either very stable or slightly growing, and at the higher there's an inverse relationship between the price of the stock and the yield of that stock. And so as the stock price goes down, if the yield remains the same, or if the dividend remains the same, the yield will go up. And so so when you look at these particular individual stocks, if you see the dividend at an all-time high, it means that the stock itself has probably gotten beat up pretty good.
It might be a great buy.
Yeah, if the fundamentals of the company remain strong, you're buying at the very best time to get. You're at the very best time to get into that stock because it's already at a low point as far as the price of the stock, but you also are locking in a very nice yield. And in the cases of the ones that you picked out, which I'm pretty impressed with, is that you have a very nice annual yield from these stocks. Now,
11.5 blended? Are you kidding me?
It's very nice. Now, how did you go about, just for the audience's information, how did you research these stocks and how did you come up with these three?
Okay. Well, two of them were simple, and because I've never been to your level. Okay, let's just put that right out there. However, there's been some years I'm interested in the market, and I can read and I study stuff. And ANGC is one of the most steady real estate investment trusts on the board. They have a blend of mortgages, commercial properties, retail properties. They never got caught up or into any of those really weird real estate derivatives or any of that kind of stuff. Their business model is simple: have good properties with good tenants that pay their rent and allow the world to appreciate around them. And when you invest in them, they've always had the mentality that if you're going to invest in our stock, we're going to pay you a handsome dividend for it.
Okay, so where did you do your research? Did you go on CNBC,
Schwab?
Bloomberg?
No. Schwab.
How did you find it?
Seeking Alpha, Market Watch. Not anything on television.
Okay, so there is, I like Seeking Alpha myself. I love it a lot.
Yeah,
yep, love it. There's another stock that I absolutely love, but this is the wrong time to invest in it. But it's Realty Income Corporation. The symbol is O.
Of course, yeah, I know. I'm aware of them.
Class A properties, wonderful. I mean, they've just grown tremendously over the years. Not a good time to invest in them now because the stock price is very high. The yield is
overvalued, yeah.
Right. So the yield's only 3.5%, and the stock price is, appreciated from 2012 from 33 up to near $80. So, that's a good capital appreciation. Now, if you did invest back in 2012, not only would you have that probably locked in a good 7-8% dividend yield, but you also would have capital appreciation, almost tripling the price of the stock. So that's
200% in 8 years. Are you kidding me?
That is the power. There's two things that work for you when you invest in dividend income producing stocks. And that is the dividend yield that you can lock in. And you especially SKT, you have a stock that's been beaten up a little bit, and that's why the yield is about 10%. Perfect time to start nibbling away at that and starting to get a position.
But again, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And the second thing is that capital appreciation. I mean, it's a bonus to me. I want the yield first. I want them to pay me for owning that share, but then you got the capital appreciation, which can compound your rate from 9% to 40%. I mean, that is the bonus.
That's huge.
That's what makes Warren Buffett the smartest investor in the world.
I could not agree more. Now, Unit was another company that I looked into a while back. I followed them for a couple years now, and 3-4 years. I love Unit. They're a telecom company, and they own the land and lease it to cell phone towers. And they own the land and the fiber optics for companies that are running their Comcast cable lines through. They lease their cable to AT&T, grade A customers. In other words, the people that are paying them rents are solid companies and it's all about cellular communication, digital communication. That's not going away.
Yeah, that is just like owning rental property or real estate. Those fiber optic lines are just like real estate.
Better than real estate, because even when the real estate market's down, those leases are getting paid every month.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not going anywhere.
Great. Well, you got a great plan there. I like it.
Okay, so that's phase 2. Let's go down to phase 3.
Okay.
Stage 3, I'm down to 54,000 XRP. I have a goal. I want to increase my monthly income again, and I want to acquire some property for my own. But I also want to retain some capital, right? I don't want to just blow the whole thing. So 25% of 54,000 XRP is 13,500 XRP. I know I'm going to need $25 a coin to reach the dollar goal that I have, right? To net $250,000 after taxes. Here's the math. 13,500 XRP at $25,000 a coin gives me $337,500. I have a cost basis of $7,020. I have a taxable gain of $330,480. My long-term capital gain has not changed. So I net out $280,908. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take $240,000 and I'm going to put that into some kind of income producing vehicle. Now, notice it doesn't say Costa Rica CD. It doesn't say Costa Rica CD because the point is there is going to be opportunities to either take all of those CD funds that I had in stage 1 and stage 2, combine them into a dividend reinvestment account and start sweeping out a portion of the dividends as income while allowing the bulk to start compounding. So for instance, if I had $480,000 in a drawing dividends and taking advantage of valuation, capital valuation, it might not be unreasonable to think that I can draw off 1% per month as an income and allow the balance, whatever the remaining balance of the dividends are, and of course the principal, to continue to compound and appreciate. So that's why it doesn't say CD. Obviously, I don't know the exact A, B, C, D, or E, F, and G at this particular point, but I know the direction. So I'll have to investigate those things as I get close to a stage 3 decision-making process.
Okay, so that was a little bit maybe complicated for most people. So basically what you're doing,
okay,
you're taking your $280,000 that you netted.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to put 240 into an income producing vehicle.
Correct.
but you don't know what that is yet.
Correct.
Or it is, okay, you don't know what that is. And then you're going to put $40,908 to a real estate project.
Correct.
Now, this is a personal residence, or it's going to be an income producing property for you.
Correct.
Okay. And so those combined investments, you're seeking a 10% annual yield.
Correct.
Okay. So that
would be my goal. Whatever I do with that $240,000, I want it to generate 10% a year.
Okay. So if you want to generate the 10% a year, you know that you can get that with Costa Rica CDs.
I do.
Why would you be looking elsewhere? Why would you be looking anyplace else?
Because there's no upside beyond that. There's no capital. There's no
capital appreciation like the dividends.
Appreciation element.
Right. So, but you're leaving this open-ended. The stage three.
See, I don't know what the market's going to look like when XRP is sitting at $25 a coin.
Right. We don't know. But you're leaving your investment options after you do cash out. You know how many XRP you're going to sell, okay, and you know the price at which you're going to sell it. You know so the things that you know are your tax liability and how much you're going to net.
Correct.
The thing that you don't know is what you're going to be investing in. And what I would suggest to you is list a couple of different options there and not just leave it open-ended.
Okay.
Because when you get to that point, you're going to say, okay, I never thought this through. I'm just trying to leave it open. And typically what happens is a boat that doesn't have a rudder. It's like a boat that doesn't have a rudder. You just kind of drift along until you figure it out. And in the meantime, you're maybe missing out on opportunities of generating at least some income until you make a final decision. So I would suggest putting in maybe 2 or 3 options that you have in order to generate the goals of both capital appreciation and the 10% annual income. Because if you don't do it now and you wait until that point,
That's a good idea. You never know. The emotion might take over, and I spend some of that money leasing a Gulfstream and flying around the world.
That's right. That's right. Or you buy a Tesla.
Or I buy a Tesla. That's great. My goals in stage 3 are pretty simple. I will do that. I'll put my options on, but I do have my goals. My goals are pretty clear.
Yeah, your goals are clear. I would just put some options.
$4,000, right? I want to be getting my $4,000 a month income.
Right.
I have darn near $41,000 sitting as a down payment or to use for fees to acquire a house. My goal for the property, when you ask me, is it a residence or an income producing property? It's both. I want to have the kind of property that I can live and I can grow my sprouts, my vegetables, the things that you can't easily get down here, and start actually building a business at the farmer's market. We have a great farmer's market here Thursday and Friday.
Okay. Well, put that in your plan. That is a potential option. Absolutely. I don't see that.
Doesn't it say somewhere about my greenhouse and all that?
Unless
Oh, maybe that's in the next stage. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, don't see it.
Okay, my bad. I will. Okay. So that's stage 3. Now I put a note in here. I would take a loan to cover the balance and pay off or reduce that loan in stage 4. So it's approximately $90,000 to get the size lot with the right, the kind of house that I want, with the kind of property that I can do what I want to do.
Okay.
90,000. Can you believe that? You can't buy a cardboard box where you're at for 90.
That's right. You can't.
Okay. Stage 4. I've got 40,500 XRP left. My goals in stage 4, some of them are just always the same. I want to increase my monthly income. I want to pay off any loans that I took in stage 3. I want to do my improvements, and this is when I want to start doing some stuff for myself. I want to start traveling. So I think those are pretty fair goals to have.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to sell 25% of that 40,000, and I want to net another 250,000 after taxes. So I do my little equation. 10,125 XRP at $40 a coin gives me 405,000 gross. My basis is 5,265, gives me a gross taxable of 399,735. My long-term capital gains doesn't need to be adjusted. Leaves me a net after taxes $339,775. I want to take 240,000 of that, get into another income producing vehicle, which will be whatever happens in stage 3. And then I have 99,000 for the other various things, for some home improvement stuff, or if I took a loan, pay that loan down to something extremely manageable. Here's the thing. This is where I start getting into where I'm going to need to go out and get some outside help. I should be generating a $6,000 a month income at this point, and now I am going to be subject to income tax. However, with my property and the small business that I'm going to start on the property, I may be able to take advantage of some deductions into some things that will help reduce my income tax liability. So all those things will have to be gone over with the tax attorney.
Absolutely. There was a report put out by the IRS a few years ago of individuals that had passed away who had a net worth of $2.5 to $3.5 million.
Okay.
And a couple of the things that they published this report, the IRS published this report, and they mentioned the fact that the rich are different than everybody else because of what they invest in and what they do with their money. A couple of the interesting findings, and this is all in my Wealth Masterclass, by the way.
At strongmarkets.com.
Strongmarket.com. Right. So in the report, it identified 2 areas. Number one was dividend in interest income, which was very, very high for these high net worth individuals. The other thing that they had in common was business deduction. So there was actually a loss on a business they were using that offset all of their other income. And sure. So it's, if you're legitimately running a business that has expenses, those can be deducted from your gross income. And especially if you're a single member LLC in the United States, I'm not sure how the laws work in Costa Rica, but in that case, you get to deduct it off of your personal taxes, any business expenses that you have. Sure. And so those 2 things, there was a number of other things in this report, but those are the 2 most important, I think, for your tax liability. And I'm sure a professional is going to be able to give you additional tips, but those are the ones that the IRS report saw in that $2.5 to $3.5 million range.
Right. Well, there are so many cases where somebody who's become wealthy takes a hobby, something they love and enjoy, turns it into a business. Doesn't matter if it's profitable or not. They were going to do it anyway. Right.
It just makes it's just common sense that if you can turn your hobby into something that you love into a business activity, now you can start to deduct your expenses, travel, subscriptions, all of those things that you normally would just pay for out of pocket and deduct those.
Oh, here's the greenhouse comment. So, so this $99,000, it's almost $100,000 that I'm going to use to pay off loans or downsize or fund improvements. I really want a beautiful, large or 2 large greenhouses.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, one of the great things about planning this out now is to have that goal that you look forward to too. It's not just putting money away and saving it for a rainy day and compounding the interest and being a Scrooge with it, but it's also enjoying it, right. And using that money to, further your own lifestyle and your own pleasure of life. It's perfectly reasonable thing to do.
One of the things, and I'll be honest, Dave, I never thought about this. Not even after I retired when I was 50, this never occurred to me. didn't till somewhere around 51 years old, where I actually had the realization that there was a possibility that I was going to live a long life broke.
Mm.
You know what I mean? My whole life, I just worked and made money. Money was easy. Get a job, build something for somebody, build a house, build a deck, build, whatever.
Right.
Was never an issue. You get older, right? If you're not thinking about the future, like the worst thing in the world that can happen to me is I'm going to live to 85 years old and be broke from 60 to 85. That would suck.
Yeah, that's quality of life. You don't, and you think, oh, wow, he's, if you're 60 years old, that's old. I mean, especially people under 30. Oh, that's old. But it's not, because people are living longer and longer these days. And living to 85 is not unreasonable or unimaginable. That's 25 years from the age of 60 to 85. 25 years of life. How are you going to live it is really up to you. And
right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Are you going to be behind McDonald's getting, scraps, or are you going to be
that is so sad.
Organic grass-fed beef from the butcher?
Right. Exactly. It's a quality of life that is absolutely
quality of life. So stage 5 is all about monitoring. Now, keep in mind, I'm not completely sold out of my XRP position. I've got 30,000 XRP, 375 left. Now my job goes from actively planning and executing a plan to actively monitoring. So stage 5 is all about monitoring my capital requirements and the market conditions and making sure that I allocate the balances to the most appropriate fashions. I'm not sure what the world is going to look like when XRP is at $45 a coin. Mm-hmm. But I will know that I cannot go to sleep on my holdings. Just like you talked about, you may, and I fully intend to enlist a fiduciary planner. I fully intend to get a CPA or, tax attorney, or a CPA and then an attorney. Just because I have that team doesn't mean I go to sleep.
Right. Absolutely.
It's my money. It's my responsibility. We really want to emphasize that fact that sometimes even building a plan like this one here that's pretty entailed, I learned a ton going through this plan. I thought this plan was rock solid. I present it to my friend. My friend has feedback immediately, not criticizing me, but Cryptopolis said, "Hey, think about this. Look at this."
I think that's a very important thing that you just said. Is that just going through this process of creating your plan, your exit strategy, you learned a great deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that is another benefit of doing this ahead of time. Absolutely.
So I'm left with a couple of questions. And these are questions that I'm very well aware of. And as I'm interviewing my team, right? Like for instance, something that I would do is, as I'm getting ready to interview my team, I would review my plan with Cryptopolis and with these questions that I have listed here below in mind. But I just want to do a quick recap. So my plan leaves me with 30,375 XRP. I'm approximating $40 value because that was what stage 4 was. That gives me a value of a little over $1.2 million in XRP. Now, obviously, markets go up and down, and who knows what's going to happen. But for the purposes of the recap, I've got $720,000 US dollars producing income for me. All right, producing a $6,000 a month income. I've got that compounding interest account that I created. That with that $25,000 in stage 2, that sucker after 30 years is going to be worth 750 grand. If it doesn't go to me, I can will it to my children at the end of the 30 years. See, they don't get it. They don't get to take that money and go buy a car and a new jet ski. It'll be a chunk of money for them when they are a little older. Well, obviously a lot older, 30 years from now. But the point is, there'll be a chunk maybe for my grandchildren. Now, there are questions I have. This is where I need to do some research. I'm going to talk to you. I talk to the professionals, but I need to really understand the actual dynamics of an IRA, right? I have a base understanding today. I need to know how I can interact in Roth IRA with them. I need to find out and get as much information I can about tokenizing funds, because maybe my 30,000 XRP that I have left, I don't have sitting in a ledger. Maybe I have that working with a Celsius or a Nexo or a Block One or a Kava Labs or a who knows what's going to, maybe Fidelity or BlackRock or Goldman Sachs has a product by then. I don't.
Absolutely. Now this stage, I agree with you 100% that you can't narrow down exactly. You can't even put options in there, because the entire crypto marketplace could look entirely different than what it does right now.
Right.
And there are going to be options that are going to be available at that stage. But you're now seasoned. See, you're a seasoned wealth manager of your own money by stage 5. So you should be in good shape to start making those kind of decisions on your own. Everything else needs to be nailed down, but this is a good one. Now, I'm not a big fan of some of these choices, especially if you're gifting or sending, giving them to your kids. One of the things I personally think about is an irrevocable trust, in which so in other words, it can't be modified, it can't be changed, it can't be dissoluted, you can't have a dissolution of it by the children inherit it, and then they are allowed under the conditions of the trust to be able to take out a certain amount of money in order to either pay for their kids' college or to buy a house or something.
You set the parameters.
You set the parameters of it, and then it could not, maybe, in some instances, it may not even be a gift. It may be like a bank where you borrow it from the trust and you pay it back. So that trust is perpetual.
You mean there may be an element of my children having to be responsible that gets added into this deal?
Yes, you could make them responsible, yes. If they want the money, they can take it, but they got to pay it back.
I love it. I can see it now. Dylan, my 24-year-old, walking through the house and the greenhouses and looking at the bank statements, and he's thinking to himself, "All this is going to be mine." Well, Dylan, read the fine print in the irrevocable trust, young man. Read the fine print, baby.
Yeah. So now your trust becomes a perpetual income-producing vehicle long after you're gone, and your great grandchildren will have the opportunity as well. It's like the Bank of Jerry, really.
Right.
Your kids can take out money, but they have to pay it back. That interest compounds in the trust.
Isn't that this journey into crypto, and I don't think I'm alone. And thank God this community, this incredible community that we're a part of, the greater crypto community, has a mix of people like yourself that are bringing in years and years and years of expertise, not necessarily because you went to a school with a name on it and got a degree, but because you lived life and you put your money to work, and you hit your head on sometimes and you made the best decision other times, but you always kept learning. You're a student, Dave, and that's one of the things I'm learning from you, is to be a student. Learn. Don't be afraid to ask a stupid question. Don't be afraid to reach out.
I think sometimes the best way to learn is through experience. And I've had my ups and I've had my downs. I've invested in businesses that I didn't have any affinity with, and I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I've invested in other things that I personally were invested in and personally loved, and have made hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a learning process. And every time I made a mistake or I made something successful, I've always tried to pull some learning experience from it. So even the losses are not a total loss, because I've learned something that made me more successful the next time I come into that same situation. And if you continue to learn, I've been a lifelong learner. When I was younger, I read 2 to 3 books every single week. I still read constantly. I probably read a good 30, 40 hours every single week, just, in my spare time. Plus
That's a
a
lot.
full, plus running a business, strongmarket.com. I have actually 3 different businesses that I run. And it takes a great deal of my time, and my schedule is incredibly busy, but I love to do it. See, if I had to do it, I wouldn't like it. I'd quit right away. But I love doing it, and I follow those projects that interest me. This is one of them. Beyond Moon is one of them. And I'm very happy to be a part of it. And I think hopefully people, not only now, but in the future, a year or 2 or 3 years from now, who are watching this, will glean something from it as well. But I highly suggest everybody take this one thing away from this entire series, is be a learner, a constant learner. Don't ever stop learning.
Boy, I was just thinking about people that might find this a couple of years from now. See, we're hosted solely on Coil. Coil is the only place to find Beyond Moon. And I want to let the audience know an arrangement that Cryptopolis and I made before we even put together an outline for episode number 1 was anything, any fund, any XRP, whether it be 0.0001 or 25 million XRP, anything that this series generates is going to go directly to a financial literacy program to help fund the creation of financial literacy documentation and tools and information so that, pardon me, so that we are contributing to a larger space beyond just us crypto investors.
Absolutely.
So
that
feel free.
100% true.
Watch this 5 times if you're a Coil subscriber. You will help somebody at some point someday.
We're paying it forward. We're going to use whatever knowledge and just following the conversation and in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it might be. Some of it may not be relevant anymore, but I have a feeling that there's enough content in this series that will last for a very, very long time. And, you'll benefit everybody by just watching it on Coil. And like I said, we're not benefiting personally in any way from this entire series.
No. So thank you, Cryptopolis, and thank you everybody for tuning in to Beyond Moon. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until next time, everybody, Pura Vida.